Okay, everyone, good morning. Welcome back to a new week from the Celtic Way. It's Monday morning. This is the morning briefing looking back on Celtic's draw at Ibrox yesterday. We had John and Tony on the reaction yesterday. Ryan is with you. Hamish, that's me, with you. Hello, Ryan.
Hi mate, how you doing? How's things? You're good?
You know, I'm all good. I'm actually fine. I'm interested to know how everyone else is feeling about the game yesterday. Now that I guess most of you will have, I hope you've all been to sleep at some stage and woken up. How are you reflecting on the match? I'd say generally there's a fair bit of frustration out there. Clearly, we all wanted to win the game, but I'm not part of that. I don't know if that's different. I'll ask you how you're feeling, Ryan. But I'm kind of feeling all right about it. I thought it was an improvement from Celtic. Clearly, a lot we can still work on. But I thought compared to the previous two derbies, it was a big improvement for me.
I think just the way the game went as a whole, the fact that Celtic get better as the game progressed and went into the latter stages, it looked as if Celtic were the more dangerous of the two sides. That chance from Maeda at the end is a massive one. Although Brendan Rodgers was quick to say we need to give him a wee bit of leeway here because he's got so much on his mind at the moment. Winning awards might have been on his mind as well. That's all he seemed to do last night. But his wife's expecting her third child, so he's clearly got that in his head and in his mind, and maybe that's the reason why. Well, it was the reason why he wasn't so sharp in front of goal because he's only trained once in the lead up to the game yesterday. But yeah, I think there is frustration, and I think it's warranted in some quarters because in the first half, Celtic, despite having a lot of the ball, weren't doing much with it. Rangers scored and it was disallowed, and then they scored again right after Adamida missed that glorious chance. So there was frustration going in at half time, but I actually thought that Celtic dealt with the game okay in the second half. Probably could and should have won it at the end. I can understand why there's frustration there, but it's one of those ones, and Brendan Rodgers said it yesterday, if you can't win the game, then don't get beat, and that's what happened yesterday.
He loves that, doesn't he? Him and
He
Callum
does.
McGregor love that phrase. Okay, before we get started, well, we've already got started, but anyway, a quick word from our sponsor. This Celtic Way video is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and the surrounding areas, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Start your search today. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to have you all in. Busy enough as we react to the final derby of the season. I thought we controlled big parts of the game yesterday. That for me was the big difference from the previous derbies. I think the previous two, we had no real control in it. Even at Celtic Park, it felt in that second half, it didn't feel to me like we had total control. But I thought yesterday we were the team trying to play the football. Virtually all the Rangers' chances came from set pieces, which they're relatively effective at. But in terms of, the kind of the actual football that was played, it was all played from Celtic, I thought at times we played through the press really well. That was, again, a big difference from the previous derbies. I didn't think we looked nearly as flustered in our own half playing through the press. It was almost as if we looked flustered when we got into the final third, and the amount of good areas we got into. It was just like an overhit cross or an underhit pass. I thought there was so many underhit passes yesterday, and like getting into good areas and shots getting blocked as well. Ida had one really early on in the game, you remember, where I think Maeda tees him up, and he's kind of I think he's only got Suter or Balogun in front of him, and he gets the shot away, but it's blocked. And just things like that, a bit more composure, just calm down a bit. And I think we should have won that game. Rangers did have chances, and maybe arguably the better chances, slightly better chances overall. But I thought we were the team that looked the most likely in terms of the way we were playing football. I thought a draw was a fair result.
Yeah, I can't really complain about a draw either with the way the two sides were playing, the way the chances transpired as well. At the end of the game, it was a weird one because I don't think there was that much quality in the game at all, especially in the second half. It was a bit of a turgid affair. I think Celtic looked at their most nervous and weak in the transition, and that was shown in the lead up to the first goal because it's a quick corner. that's taken. Arne Engels plays a ball into the box, which was a decent ball. It was well intercepted by the Rangers defender. And then from then, Celtic looked completely shortchanged. They looked as if they didn't have as many bodies at the back, which was understandable because they were defending the corner, and from that, Dessers managed to get a goal with something like his 5th or 6th touch of the game. He was completely quiet. It was a day.
Yeah.
2 strikers. I think the story of the game is those 2 strikers in Dessers and Ida, and I think there are some similarities between the two players. I think Ida's a better player and he's got a higher ceiling than Cyril Dessers, but they're very similar. You know, they miss some chances that they probably should take, and they score the ones that maybe they're not fancied to score. But you know, at the end of the day, those were the two difference makers for each side on the day. I thought there were positives in the game as well. The individual performers. Sinisalo looks as if he won't just be a second choice goalkeeper. I think he will be first choice in the coming years. He doesn't strike me as a backup. He strikes me as a guy that's learning from Kasper Schmeichel to potentially overtake him in a year to 2 years' time. I thought he acquitted himself really well in the game, and I thought Celtic's best player was Cameron Carter-Vickers. I thought he was tremendous at the back, especially when he's nursing an injury. At the moment, he's nursing a hamstring. Yeah. Brendan Rodgers said after the game. So it looks as if he'll be taken out the firing line. But I felt that he pushed through the pain barrier and had a really, really good game and kept that defence solid enough for the duration.
Yeah, as you say, he's playing through an injury, which I don't think it's a massive surprise. That it's maybe felt like he and Alistair Johnson have been a little bit off it. In fact, that they're two of the players that were criticised. So not a huge surprise to me to find out that both of them have been playing through an injury for a period. And I think Johnson had an injection last week, so he's going to miss this week as well. And then hopefully back. I think the aim's maybe to get Johnston and Carter-Vickers, who'll be going for an injection this week. I think the plan is to get them both back maybe for Trophy Day, but certainly the Scottish Cup final. And I think basically everything Celtic are doing between now and May the 24th will be with May the 24th in mind. So I think you're going to see a fair bit of rotation over the last 3 games of the season. And yeah, hopefully when it gets to that Aberdeen Cup final, we're in a really good place. But yeah, Cameron Carter-Vickers is going to miss a couple of games. Everyone... Sinisalo, I thought was a really accomplished performance in that kind of atmosphere. Just not flustered at all. Makes I thought a pretty good save early on in the game from the deflected Czerny shot that I don't know if it was going in or if it's going over or hitting the bar, but he has to get a hand to it and does well. Even there was a Raskin header shortly after that you might remember that he held on to. That was a good save, and there was one later on in the game as well. Even a rare lapse almost from Cameron Carter-Vickers when he played that blind back pass, and Sinisalo was alert to get onto it. The one issue or blot in his copybook, I guess, was the disallowed Rangers goal.
Yeah.
He should be saving that for me. Doesn't matter because it's offside, but generally a really good performance. I thought I'm quite impressed by Sinisalo.
Carries himself really well despite being a young goalkeeper. There doesn't seem to be any jitters in his game at all. He's very confident, and he portrays that confident character when he's speaking to the media. He is an assured speaker, even though English isn't his first language. You wouldn't think that because he's got an English accent from his time down in Birmingham. He seems to have really taken to the English language well. Popular teammate by all accounts. Cal McGregor was bigging him up yesterday after the game too, which is brilliant to see. And I think it's only a matter of time. As much as Kasper Schmeichel's been a tremendous signing, arguably Celtic's signing of the summer last season, or last summer rather, I think Sinisalo will be the number one in the... Maybe not next season, but the season after. I think Schmeichel might have one more season in him, and then there'll be a push from Sinisalo to be that number one. I would like to see him in more games. I know that he's played.
Give him both the cups next season.
Absolutely.
Full stop, including Hampden if we get there. Give him the League Cup and the Scottish Cup. And
performances like this make me wonder why that wasn't the case for even the League Cup. I know that he was brought in there as a necessity for the Scottish Cup because Kasper Schmeichel was injured, but why didn't he play in the League Cup? Because he's clearly good enough to command his box and command his line. I've been really impressed with him, and I think it's a really good acquisition from Celtic and one that will pay off even more so in the coming years. But yeah, been quietly impressed. I think that save in the second half, the one that he sort of saved it from behind, it was a sort of shot to the side and he saved it or palmed it away. It was a really good save in the second half. It's one that I've not seen back, but the couple of times that I watched it at the time, I was like, that's a really accomplished save. And you've got your team out of a hole there. So, yeah, delighted with his performance yesterday. I thought he was one of the standouts alongside Carter Vickers. But that kind of tells you about the way the game went, that two of Celtic's better players were a centre-back and a goalkeeper. You know, it's a game that you wanted Celtic to go into with attack and flair to really hurt Rangers. And you're talking about a centre-back and a goalkeeper, which, credit to them, they've had good performances, but, you know, you're looking for more on the offensive end, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, Pete talking about Rio Hatate's performance, and yeah, I thought Hatate had a pretty good game, to be honest. I thought the midfield in general was quite good. Callum McGregor. I know Arne Engels is just, I think
I didn't understand the discourse online at all about Arne Engels. That was one that really did in terms of, I've seen a lot of people slating him when I thought he was one of the better players in the first half. I thought he was actually trying to get Celtic forward and was imposing himself on the game. You know, a busy midfield with Diamande, Raskin, McGregor, Hatate in there as well, Connor Barden. But I thought he acquitted himself really well in the first half, faded in the second, and then Bernardo replaced him, who I thought was really, really good for the half an hour or so that he was on the pitch. He just continues to impress me every time he plays. So the future's definitely bright in the midfield. I think the price tag, like with Adam Maeda, it'll always get lobbied against a player like Arne Engels. They want him, people that criticise him want him to take over a game completely. But I thought he did okay for the 60 minutes he was on the park.
Yeah, I thought he started the game incredibly well, but maybe as game went on, he kind of he fell away slightly. But I enjoyed the general midfield performance. Front three probably lacked a little bit. Maeda was pretty quiet. Obviously, things going on in his life. He'd been back in Japan, I think, all of last week, pretty much since we won the league, and only got back and trained for the first time on Saturday. So clearly stuff going on there with him. I'm not sure if he's going to go back to Japan this week. Sorry, I should say he was over for the birth of his third child, but his wife hadn't given birth last week. I'm not sure if she has yet or what the story is there, but he might well be heading back to Japan, which isn't, you know, a few miles away, Japan. It's a fair old trek. I think a 15 or 16 hour flight, something like that. So Dyson's on the run. James Forrest, I thought, gave us a real bit of composure at times, and especially in the first half. I just felt there's a few times when he was kind of falling over, and I wanted him to be a little bit stronger. Adam Maeda's probably the one people are talking about most because he was incredibly frustrating in that first half. Mm-hmm. Did a few good things in terms of, you know, backing in and using his strength, something Brendan Rodgers brought up after the game, him being a real focal point. Is that the phrase? I feel like he maybe uses a slight variation on that. Reference point, that's it, thank you. But, I mean, the chances come. That one early on in the game where he's running through and he's got Forrest to his right, you've got to make that pass. Like, that's a straightforward pass. And then his big chance at the end of the half, again, got to score that. To his credit, Adam Maeda, and again, it kind of sums maybe his season up, and that he's frustrating quite a lot of the time, but he still pops up with a pretty big goal that gets us a draw at Ibrox. So what was your thoughts on his overall performance?
Very different at full time to what they were at half time, to be honest with you, because I think the miss was compounded by the goal that happened a minute later from Dessers, and a lot of the stick online, because I do check online and see what people are saying as the game goes on and progresses, because it's good to get a second or third or fourth opinion when you're doing the player ratings as well. As much as I don't like to influence my ratings, it's good to see what the general thought is of a player. And if you were to type Ida into X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, it would have been a very negative place at halftime with that chance. It's a good save from Liam Kelly. I understand what Adam Maeda's trying to do. He's trying to lift it over the goalkeeper, kind of shoulders it away, goes out for a corner, the quick corner, and then in the transition, Celtic completely capitulate and Cyril Dessers scores. But to his credit, as you say, he keeps on plodding along and keeps on going. He doesn't allow his head to drop at all. And from looking at the stats, there'll be a stats report out later today on Adam Maeda's performance, because I think that's the only place you can really talk about in terms of the way the game transpired. It was all about Adam Maeda yesterday. He had the most pressures in the game for Celtic. He had like the second most counter pressures for Celtic. He didn't allow his head to drop, and He scores. Well, he's a little bit fortuitous with the way the deflection goes off of John Souttar at the back of the net, but he takes a chance. He swings a leg at it and it goes in the back of the net. It doesn't matter how scrappy it is. It's not the perfect goal. It was a scrappy goal all in all, but it still manages to end up in the back of the net, and that's his job at the end of the day, to score goals for Celtic. And more often than not, in the big games over the past 2 seasons, you look at even his intervention against Young Boys, despite it being an own goal, he steps up. And he's a big game player, whether you like him or you don't, leading the line for Celtic. He usually turns up in those big moments and makes himself available and makes himself seen and heard. And he did that yesterday. Didn't allow his head to drop, and he got his reward with a goal in the second half.
Yeah. I mean, I credit for getting that goal. That first half performance was really frustrating. Some of the moments. I mean, even just away from the obvious chances, there was one moment in the first half where, again, I think we play a throw into him, and he's backing in. He's got a defender exactly where he wants him. And then he just kind of turns around and tries to thrash it into the box, and it comes to nothing. There was a number of those passes we had. James Forrest had one. Dyson had one, where we got into good counter-attacking areas in that first half. And just the final ball was under hit or just not quite right. And that was my big frustration for yesterday. I thought we had the opportunities and we got into the areas to really go and win that game, and it didn't happen. But I always think a draw at Ibrox is never a bad result. Obviously, we all wanted to win, but you take it and you move on. I think we've got a far more important game at the end of the month in the cup final, and I think, to be honest, that's what everything's geared towards now. Just want to talk a wee bit about just a couple of the scenes before and during the game. I think Rangers have put a statement out via a spokesperson, just basically calling out the incidents, the tifo before the game, acknowledging that that's unacceptable, and also the actions of the individual, they say, who threw a bottle during today's match. I would like to point out that from the TV pictures, it didn't seem like that was the only thing that was thrown onto the pitch. And also seems from my point of view, like every time we go to Ibrox at this stage, there's this sort of incident. I mean, you only have to go back to the last one. Arnie Engels was hit by, was it a bottle late on in the game?
Coin.
A Celtic, a coin. Okay, point taken. A Celtic physio was, hurt, I think, bleeding, but also, damaged or scarred psychologically following an incident at a game a number of years ago. There was another one with a smashed bottle, I think, and they spent minutes trying to find shards of glass in Joe Hart's box. And even at Celtic Park games, you have, Rangers players acting up during the game, trying to incite something. And I think it's a bit of an issue here, to be honest. Celtic, we're not perfect, There's various things people might have seen that I think, the Celtic support at times, we have to have some sort of regret over that. But generally, for me, the vast amount of incidents we're getting in these derbies, and it's every derby at this stage, are being caused by the blue side of Glasgow, either players themselves on the pitch or kind of more often than not fans in the stand. But what's going to happen here?
I don't know. Because there's been steps taken to get fans back into this fixture, and I think it's paramount that the fans remain in place. So something's got to give one way or the other. We can't have no away supporters both at Celtic Park and Ibrox once again, even though it's the home supporters that were the problem yesterday. It seemed. I mean, I seen the bottle of tonic wine that came onto the pitch. Also, I think it was a vape that came onto the pitch in Sinisalo's direction. I think it's a nationwide problem, to be honest, in terms of projectiles coming onto the pitch, and it has been for as long as I can remember, and even before. There seems to be this attitude that because you're in a stadium and you're in the crowd, you can throw on whatever you want and face no repercussions. At the end of the day, these guys, these 22 men on the pitch, are trying to do a job. They're trying to play a game of football. And regardless of what team you support, you should know that that's unacceptable. You wouldn't do that outside, or I would hope that you wouldn't do that outside of a game. You'd be flinging stuff at people, flinging glass bottles, flinging vapes that are heavy. if you throw that at a certain amount of speed, it will hurt somebody if it connects with them directly. So I think there needs to be. It's a difficult one. It's one of those ones where you want more done, but what is there to do? What steps can the relevant authorities take here? Does it come from the clubs? Do the clubs individually punish the perpetrators if they're caught, or does it go further than that? But you see, it's just a bad look. You've got so many people watching the game yesterday, watching the Glasgow derby yesterday, and for a lot of people, the main image that they'll take away from that game, because the quality in the park wasn't that great, is the bottle of Buckfast that's been thrown onto the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, Pete even bringing up, and that's an interesting point I've forgotten about, the way that a couple of their players, I think Cherny and Hadji, reacted when they were subbed. It just seems like Rangers are a bit of an angry bunch at the moment, and I couldn't imagine why that might be the case. But yeah, we don't need to worry about Rangers for a while. We can wave goodbye to them for a few months. We can go and win a treble. And how many trophies are they going for again? What's the rest of their season look like, Ryan?
I couldn't even tell you. I think it's looking pretty quiet in that direction.
Okay, good stuff. Anything else? What's this from Callum McGregor? What was he saying after the game?
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good after the game. He's as you said last week, he impresses you every time he speaks to the media with what he's saying. I'm sure we'll have the audio of that going up in the Celtic Way YouTube channel as well. But he was talking about dispelling and sort of quashing the mini narrative that's going about with Celtic and Rangers at the moment. You've only got to look at the league table to know who the better team are between Celtic and Rangers, and he was making that point clear. It wasn't just that he was talking about. He was talking about Adam Maeda having a knack of scoring in big games. He's a big moment player. He was also saying that Sinisalo was excellent in the game, but the main takeaway was that sort of mini narrative that he was happy for Celtic to quash at the weekend yesterday at Ibrox. As much as everybody would have probably wanted the win, if you're not going to get beat, then do your best to do that, and they got the draw. So no damage done. He was pretty happy. He said he was a little bit disappointed that Celtic didn't pick up the win, which I was delighted to see delighted to hear that message was still getting relayed to the players, that even though a draw was an okay result, given the circumstances, given the players that were out, given the atmosphere, given the team that they were playing against and the fixture, I was glad that they were saying that they were disappointed that they didn't go out and get the 3 points. I think that's measured from the captain, and it shows the winning mentality that's installed into each and every player that plays for Celtic.
Just on Brendan Rodgers, what he was saying, we've touched on some of it already. Dyson had been in Japan all week, may go back to Japan this week. We'll wait and see. He'll be making changes for the coming games. Carter Vickers is going to drop out. Wonder who comes in next to Scales. Trusty's my gut instinct. Dane Murray's out for the rest of the season, isn't he? Naropski's there as well, but I think it'll probably be Trusty and Scales, because we saw them a bit at the start of the season, didn't we, when Carter Vickers was out. I'm looking forward to potentially seeing a few different players over the next 2 games, possibly even onto Trophy Day, but I feel like Trophy Day might be a stronger team. Johnny Kenny would be good to get a look at him. Difficult for him yesterday, wasn't really involved, but good for him coming on in a game like that. So it'd be good to see him. A few other young players potentially. Like to see more of Yang. Yang was all right when he came on yesterday, but you could tell he'd probably missed a few weeks as well. So hopefully he can kick on and kind of get back to where he was before his injury. But looking forward to the next few weeks. Nicholas Kuhn, the chat is that he missed the game due to a bruised knee that he sustained against Dundee United. So the hope is that he'll be back for the Hibs game. What are you hoping for the last 3 league games of the season?
I think my main source of excitement up until Trophy Day, when Celtic get handed the Scottish Premiership title officially, is to see the rotation and see certain players come back into the squad or get an opportunity in the first team squad. The likes of, as much as I think Nawrowski's future lies elsewhere, it'll be nice to see him maybe in the team. If not him, then Austin Trusty will come back in alongside Liam Scales. But I was relatively impressed with Johnny Kenny's contribution. He was quick to get on the yellow card list alongside Bailey Rice. It was an interesting one. There was no bookings, and then arguably the two, or not arguably, some of the youngest players on the pitch, and Johnny Kenny and Bailey Rice both get yellow cards within a couple of minutes of each other. So they went and sorted the tempo out and got the feistiness of the fixture back on side. But he would have been the hero yesterday if Maeda lifted his head and played it to him, because it looked as if, yes, there was a man in front of him, but it was a really good opportunity for him to have a shot at goal, and he could have maybe even worked it to Yang, who was free as well on the opposite side. But Maeda's always going to go for that. He'd probably made up his mind for about 5 seconds before he even went for the shot, because it opened up for him. You know, Tavernier inexplicably plays a pass back that just does not reach any Rangers player, and Maeda's on to the end of it. The one, I think I was close to tweeting it, and I'm glad I didn't, because Maeda deserves so much leeway for how well he's done this season. But the one area in which he's improved so much is in his decision making this season, and I just felt as if the old Maeda came out right at the end of the game. Granted, there's some reasons why that is the case, because he's got matters elsewhere off the pitch that he'll be thinking about at this moment in time.
That's not going through his head running through in goal, is it?
I'd like to make up an excuse for him and sort of a reason as to why he did what he did. But you've got, as much as I know he wants to be the hero there, I think he's got to square it to either Yang or Johnny Kenny, who are in a better position. Good save again by Kelly, who does his job on the day. But his decision making, which has been so good this season, you know, more often than not, he's made the right decision at the right time. That's the reason why he's Player of the Year, why he's had a clean sweep of the awards last night. But he made the wrong decision in that point, and it's cost Celtic 2 points. Granted, it's not cost them too much because they've already won the league. They got a draw in the game, but they could have won it if he'd have not opened his eyes, if he'd have lifted his head and seen the two players that were in support.
Okay, that wasn't ideal from Dyson, but later on in the day, in the evening, he was collecting multiple awards from different hotels or wherever they were holding these events. So in terms of Celtic's awards, Dyson got a hat-trick, not his first of the season. He won top goal scorer, Players Player of the Year, and Men's Player of the Year. That's the one voted for by supporters. He then got the PFA Scotland Premiership Player of the Year. So as expected, Dyson is cleaned up, as they would say. Men's Young Player of the Year for Celtic was Arnie Engels. Goal of the season, Carter Vickers against Kilmarnock a few weeks ago. Women's Player of the Year, Shannon McGregor. I won't go through all of these because there's a lot of them. James Forrest got a special recognition award. In terms of the PFA stuff, as I say, Dyson Premiership Player of the Year. Young Player of the Year, Lennon Miller. Manager of the Year wasn't Brendan Rodgers. It was John McGlynn of Falkirk. And SWPL Player of the Year was Emma Lawton of Celtic. So a lot of Celtic awards there. Do you care about these awards? Do they mean anything to you?
Not personally, but it's good to see that players are getting rewarded for their good form throughout the season. I think there's definitely a question to be asked about why Brendan Rodgers hasn't been. I know it's expected that Celtic win everything that comes their way, given the fact that they've got such an advantage over the rest of the teams. Not an unfair advantage, because their profit margins are fair, they're sustainable, and the reason why they're ahead is because of the profits that they get off the players that they sell, and the merchandise that they bring in, and the season tickets that they sell. But it's still a job to do at the end of the day, and Brendan Rodgers is one game away from another domestic treble. So as much as I think John McGlynn is deserving of credit, and David Gray was as well, given his turnaround for Hibs in the second half of the season, I think that I was fine with any of the three winning, but I definitely think that Brendan Rodgers was up there. That's the reason why he was nominated, and it would have been. I don't think there would have been too many eyelids batted if he'd have won the award, given his domination of Scottish football this season. But I don't think he needs that. I think he only needs the accolades, the team accolades at the end of the season, seeing those treble. There's me overthinking there. Those 3 trophies in the trophy cabinet at the end of the season, that'll be his sort of main award, and he'll take away from that what he needs.
Yeah. Okay. I think that'll do us for today. We have more on the website, everyone. Loads going on there. Plenty of reaction to the game. You've got all the quotes, everything Brendan Rodgers said after the game. You can also actually listen to that on the channel here. It's under the videos tab rather than the live stuff. And I'll return this time tomorrow to talk a bit more about Celtic. But for now, Ryan, thank you. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll chat to you tomorrow.